And look, it's not just about blaming Gen Z, right? It's not, man. You know, by the way, we're the ones that created the problem in the first place, right? Hey, Lawrence here. Welcome to Business Beats. Today, quick app, I'm talking about life can be brutal. So I'm going to run through some identification of what that means and maybe my lens on how to overcome some of those scenarios and situations when you're in them, when life is pretty brutal and it feels like it's all encompassing, right? You can't get out of it. Thanks for joining. So life can be brutal. What a topic, right? And the reason I want to talk about that today is I've had a couple of conversations about it this week. Deep conversations, actually, about how people are feeling in the current climate. There's a lot of things happening in the market, young entrepreneurs who don't have a lot of life experience, by the way. So these guys are pretty young. And with that youth, which is great, but it comes with a lack of experience, right? And it comes with, and Gen Z, I think they're not as, they haven't been open or susceptible to the way that, say, baby boomers grew up, right? People like me, where things were pretty tough all the time, every day. And in that environment, what happens is they get hit a little bit and life gets hard and becomes pretty brutal. And they tend to shake a lot and get stressed and full of anxiety, and then they don't know what to do, right? And then that creates other things that snowball from there. So it's difficult, and look, it's not just about blaming Gen Z, right? It's not, man. We by the way, we're the ones that created the problem in the first place, right? We need to be, I think, kind and empathetic to it, and I think we need to understand it really for what it is. And look, this generation, they're pretty smart, the younger generation, right? They're not a bunch of dum-dums, and I think these are the kids that are going to be building the future of the world, right? Especially in terms of AI, new technologies, and a new way of life, right? So that said, a couple of the conversations I've had, sort of coaching a couple of young entrepreneurs across this week, were about that, and I just realized is that, you know what, life can be pretty brutal, and if you haven't experienced it before, you just don't know what to do, right? Because it's new. And look, there's something to be said for parents who, give last place trophies to their children, right? I think that's done a disservice to us and to these kids, right? I think these young entrepreneurs, when they don't win, they wonder what's going on, and the other thing is that it creates a lack of patience, right? And I think that they expect things to happen faster than they normally would. And they lack patience. That said, no one's to blame, no harm, no foul. It is what it is. It's the world that it is. And I think it's just about re-education, right? So baby boomers like me, who have grown up or grew up in pretty hard times, need to pass that information and that guidance and that training and that development down to these young guys, right, and girls who are running businesses and trying to create great things and trying to create contribution for other people. So the life can be brutal statement is a true one, and I think people are struggling with dealing with it, especially if you're a Gen Z or a younger entrepreneur operating a business in whatever format that you are. So I want to talk about a couple of those verticals and how you would overcome that. The first thing is, so I spoke to a couple of guys this week. The first thing is just to talk about it. And I think what I identified in these conversations is that these guys all hang around the same type of people, right? Which is cool, and they're really great people. You are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. I truly believe that. But in this context, that doesn't work, because what you need is experience, right? So you really, you really need to speak to people who have been through the brutal components of life and have built resilience up to it and tolerance and know how to deal with certain scenarios and certain things that can provide you with good advice, right? So hopefully, if you're a young entrepreneur watching this quick take app today, that you get a couple of learnings out of this. Well, that's the goal at least. So the first thing was in those discussions, I sort of said, well, you're talking about it, so that's a tick for me, right? And you're understanding that life can be brutal, and you're trying to figure out how to overcome that. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is you are a byproduct of how you think, right? So I spoke to these guys about psychology, and that it's only as big or as bad as you think it is, right? And those simple principles of don't sweat the small stuff. Because I think when there's lots of small things that compound and grow on top of each other over a period of time, it seems like a big thing, but in actual not, they're just lots of small little things. So it's about clearing your cache, right? So you've got to go through life moving forward, and you've got to clear your cache. Just because you had a bad day yesterday doesn't mean you're going to have one tomorrow, right? So I said to him, next time you have a bad day, you should write it down. Like when you feel like life is brutal and you're struggling with getting up, going into the office and carrying on, write it down. And it helps you contextualize things, and it identifies things for you that, well, you know what? Hey, it's not as bad as what I think it is. Or what it's going to do is give you a little bit of guidance on how you would maneuver it and manage it and try to overcome it. People to talk to like me, if you've got a business coach, I think that's great. They can help you with that. But you can just talk to people in general, right? Go and speak to an old person. I don't classify myself as an old person, by the way. I'm just there's a side note. But go and speak to someone who's older, who's running a company, who's been quite successful. I guarantee you, they have been through some of the hardest times and you wouldn't even recognize it. And then it might make you contextualize your problems are nothing. So you might need to get over yourself, right? Because you could just be focused on yourself. You could just be focused on yourself, and it's not really a problem. You just think it's a problem. Or maybe you're over entitled, or maybe you have no patience, or maybe you're just selfish. Now that can be brutal in itself, just saying that, right? But sometimes if you really want to persevere and be an A gamer, not a C or B gamer, you got to be brutally honest to yourself. If you think life's being brutal, well, maybe it's just you, and maybe you need to think about that and unpack that, right? And get advice on that. That said, if it's not, write it down. That's the thing that I do. I advise these guys to do that. I think that's helping. The other thing I've said is that you just got to get on with it. So you have to put it to one side to be able to compartmentalize it and just put it over here and just move on with your day, because your business needs you. These guys have small businesses. They're trying to get to an X multiple. They've got investors on the horizon coming into 2024. And if they're going to get over emotional about everything that happens to them when it becomes brutal, their business is going to collapse and it's not going to work out for them. So I gave them some hard facts about that. So sometimes, that can be hitting you right now, it can be shaking you. You need to put it aside, get back to work, and you can deal with that later, right? Do it on the weekend when you've got some time off. And in doing so, what they've found is that just overcomes the problem. It says, you know what, you're right, it's not that bad. It's like, I just read a little section of the book by Lawrence Hanson. It's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And in the entry of that book, he talks about sometimes everything is pretty small, we just blow it out of proportion. Right, the guy who cuts you off in traffic, and then you carry that around with you for the day, like you can do that. Those are bad habits, so you just force the habit not to do that. So write it down, seek people to talk to. Those people should be more experienced than you are and have experience in that space dealing with stress, pressure, and anxiety, and can talk to you honestly, right? Not tell you what you want to hear, okay? So those are some of the key things that I normally do. The other thing is I educate myself. So I seek knowledge. Which helps me overcome all obstacles, right? So I just seek knowledge. I watch interviews, podcasts, whatever I can get my hands on. And I'm doing 20 hours a week. So this week I tapped in. Here's something interesting, right? It's been a bit of a tough week for me. There was an instance that I sort of wanted to understand. I'm rebuilding a team. And in that environment, I was trying to which is a Gen Z team, by the way. A Gen Z team, all of them, in fact, trying to understand the psychology and how they think, so I can better help them to achieve and be successful in their roles, because that's my ultimate goal. So I tapped into a couple of people this week and did some searching online and found 2 books and found some guys who were talking actively and proactively about that on YouTube. So I've been on that all week, right? So sometimes when you're going through a hard time, what you can do is you can focus on it by knowledge, learning. So instead of listening to whatever it is that you listen to, change the subject matter and the syllabus to something that you need at the time you need it, right? So I've been doing that. I always do that though, because I think I need to learn things in compartments. So this week was about, there's a couple of struggles with a couple of the Gen Z guys on the operations team. I need to learn and understand them better, so I'm going to do this now. And when you do that, you get to see it more transparently, you understand it at a deeper level, and everything sort of starts to fall into place like a Lego set, right? So I advise that you do that. So those are just some of the things, right? So just to recap, seek advice, write it down, seek knowledge, and do so vertically, and that helps you to go deeper on it and unpack it, and it makes you feel better, because you don't want to be stressed and full of anxiety running a business or in any situation, because you'll take that home with you. And I've always said that if you're not happy at home, you're not happy, because that's sort of where your heart is, right? So I think it's important to fix it as fast as possible and don't let it grow and snowball. Anyway, I hope that helped. I hope there was a couple of things in there that can help you get over some of those things in life when life does become brutal. And I appreciate you joining today, and look forward to speaking to you next time. Cheers. Look, I hope you found something that you liked or that you think may work for your business. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. We try to push out as much content and good content as we can. Really appreciate your watching, and look forward to speaking to you next time.